Hello everyone, Jai Hind and welcome to the platform of StudyIQ IAS in English. My name is Bhanwar Singh, makes India 115th course and qualified civil services in 2012. And I welcome you on the platform. Now in this session, we'll be talking about the great Nicobar project that had been in the news previously, and ultimately over here, what is the recent development is that rehabilitation and the resettlement survey had been started by the officers or the officials which are there in the Andaman and Nicobar. Now, over here, this is very important when it comes to this particular project. So the timeline is not recent. It was in the November 2022 where the environmental clearance was given by the Ministry of Environment, which has granted it the stage 1 forest and the environment clearances, and thereby the project was set into the motion. Then later on, what had happened in August 2024 was that the Public Investment Board, it has noted that the transshipment port, it lacks the explicit strategic advantage or the objectives as a commercial asset, and thereby when it comes to the investment that was not given, or the proposal for the investment was rejected by the board. And also the PPAC, that is the Public-Private Partnership Appraisal Committee, that has not given it the investment that it was seeking. Later on, the development was in March 2026. The Ministry of Defence, it has formally declared the project as a vital strategic asset to fast-track the security objectives, and thereby all the RTIs which were filed for the transparency of the project, they were denied by the government of India. And right now we are talking about the 10th of June 2026, where the resettlement census had been started at the Campbell Bay administration, which has launched the physical census to map and relocate the affected tribal and the local families which will be impacted by the project. So thereby this is a very important news, or you can say issue that we are discussing in this complete session. Now over here, when it comes to the Great Nicobar project, it is total 92,000 crore rupees mega infrastructure plan, which is whereby it is to build the modern as well as high-tech maritime as well as military colony at the southernmost island that is there in India. Now over here, this complete project, it was conceived initially by the Niti Aayog, and it will be implemented by NIDCO, and ultimately it aims to transform the complete quiet and densely forested island into a vibrant commercial city and a naval gatekeeper in the Indian Ocean. Now, there are the dual character mission of this complete project. The first one is the commercial sovereign power, where there will be, or it ends to capture the international trade tariff that passes through the Malacca Strait, bypassing the foreign transshipment ports which are located, like for example, Colombo and the Singapore. And it is to build the dual-use civilian military infrastructure as well, giving the Indian Armed Forces unmatched surveillance capacity over the international choke points and also over the Indo-Pacific region. So this is the complete project that we are talking about. The estimated cost is 92,000 crore rupees. And over here, when it comes to the complete project, so there will be a township with a residential, commercial and logistics defense facilities that will be located. Also, there would be a dual-use civilian and the military international airport. And over here, this is Galathea Bay, where there will be a transshipment port that will be constructed. Along with, there would be a gas and solar-based power plant that would be constructed just near the transshipment port. And this is where the complete project that will be executed. Now over here, there are the 4 pillars of this complete project. The first one is the transshipment port, which will be an international container transshipment port at the Galathea Bay, which will handle the massive container ships over here. Then there is the dual-use airport as well, which will be a greenfield international airport that will serve both the commercial as well as the naval operations also. That is, it will be the expansion of INS Bar's operations. Also, there is the Greenfield Township, which is a smart tourist-centric city that will house the growing population. And ultimately over here, this is projection that it will hit nearly about 6.5 lakhs residents by 2047. And there will be a power plant that will be gas and solar combined power complex that will generate the continuous electricity for the entire township and the port. So we'll be talking about what are the major issues when it comes to this particular project or the mega infrastructure project. That is one of the key initiative that the government of India is undertaking, and why this is important to understand that whether this will be a disaster or it will be a boon for the India. Now Now, over here, before moving ahead, let me tell you that if you are preparing for the civil services for 2027 or 2028 or 2029, then you can enroll into the GS Foundation batches on the platform of StudyIQ. Now, over here, the geography, if we come to the geography of Great Nicobar. So, over here, it is the southernmost island that is located in Andaman Nicobar archipelago in the Bay of Bengal region. And here we have the Indra Point as well. That is the southernmost tip of the Indian territories. All right, this Indra Point, it was submerged in the tsunami, and right now it is there at 6 degree 45 minutes north. Also, when it comes to the region, it is just 150 kilometers away from Sumatra, that is Indonesia, and lies very extremely close to the Grand Channel or the 6-degree channel that separates the Great Nicobar as well as Sumatra. Now, over here, it is very important that when it comes to the Malacca Strait, there is a very important connection, because when it comes to the Great Nicobar, so there are, when it comes to Great Nicobar, it is very close to the Malacca Strait, and there are over 94,000 ships that pass through this neighborhood annually. And right now, India is not capturing any of this transshipment cargo, and thereby India is losing huge revenue because of this particular aspect. Now, over here, this is very important to note the complete geography of the region and also the various passages which lies between Andaman and Nicobar, and also between the Great Nicobar and the Sumatra. So over here, we have Coco Channel, which is basically between Coco Islands, that is the island of Myanmar. It is under Myanmar, and then we have the North Andaman. So between Coco Islands and North Andaman, there is Coco Channel that lies over here. Then comes the South Andaman and the Little Andaman. So between South Andaman and Little Andaman, over here you can see that we have Duncan Passage between both of them. Then comes the Little Andaman. So between Little Andaman and the Car Nicobar, there is 10-degree channel that lies over here. All right, that is between Little Andaman and the Car Nicobar. And also, then when it comes to the Great Nicobar, you can see that Great Nicobar, and then we have the Banda, that is the Rondo Island, which is basically the island of Sumatra. So between these, we have the Great Channel, or even known as the 6-degree channel that lies over here. You can see the presence of the Indian Armed Forces as well. There is Diglipur Bay, where we have INS Kohasa, that is the naval air station that is located in North Andaman. And in the Port Blair, we have the naval air station as well as international airport that is located in the region. And in Campbell Bay, we have INS Baz, which is the naval air station located in Great Nicobar itself. Now, when it comes to the geopolitical shift, so you can see in 2024, this complete project was undertaken as a commercial project, where it was proposed that this is an economic venture for the transshipment port, and ultimately that have faced the skepticism. Over here, what has happened was that the PIB board, or the Public Investment Board, it noted that there is the lack of the strategic objectives, and thereby it was not preferred as an economic objective or the commercial objectivity. Now, when it comes to 2026, there was the complete shift where the Ministry of Defense have recasted the entire master plan as the strategic project, and the narrative have shifted from saving or from earning $200 million in cargo routing to building an indispensable military buffer to tackle the China's presence that is growing in the Indian Oceanic region. Now, when it comes to the impact of this complete project, so it will impact the Constitution, because there is the threatening of the spirit of the Schedule 5 and the Schedule 6 that is provided in the Constitution for preserving the identity of the tribal people which are there. So the tribal self-determination and the fundamental right, that is right to life, that is being threatened by this particular mega project. At the same time, when it comes to the ecological assessment, you can see that it will require to fell. There is felling of nearly about 9.6 lakh trees, and there will be diversion of 130 square kilometer of the area that is covered by the rainforest, and thereby it has ecological imprints as well. Also, not just the trees, also over here we have the species like leatherback turtle, which is the largest turtle of the earth, and as well as we have the megapede which are here, so they will be threatened. And again, we have the coral reefs which will be disrupted because of the complete project. Then we have the social tribal impacts as well, because this will alter the complete demography. We have two of the important tribes. We have Champagne and the Nicobaris. Now, when it comes to Champagne, they are the PVTGs, or particularly vulnerable tribal groups, which are only 75 of the tribes, which are quite vulnerable. They will be impacted, and ultimately they will be isolated because they are living in deep forest and they are dependent upon the pristine ecology that is here in the Great Nicobar. Then also, when it comes to the economic perspective, so yes, when it comes to the economic perspective, it will have the positive impact because it will unlock the massive maritime revenues. It will create the direct logistics jobs that will be there and will integrate India into the multi-trillion-dollar global shipping route. So basically, this complete issue is about the environment and also the tribal groups as compared to the development that we are undertaking over here. So basically, it is about who wins and who loses. When it comes to the Ministry of Defense and Navy, they will gain the vital deep water monitoring ports near the Sumatra or near the Malacca Strait. So ultimately, that will increase the presence of the Indian Armed Forces into the region, and it will counter the foreign naval movements as well, especially that of China. Also, when it comes to Ministry of Ports and Shipping, so they will they are expecting that they will save nearly about $200 million annually because of the transshipment where the Indian cargo, they will be there within the sovereign territory of India. Also, the ANITCO is basically looking to generate the massive tourism and the real estate revenue from the proposed township that had been proposed along with the mega project. Now, when it comes to the vulnerabilities, so we have the Tribal Council and the Champagne groups, which have argued that the ground level consent was taken without the full disclosure, and even there were the language translation that were a barrier, and thereby they have been, the distrust has been created among these tribal groups. Also, the environmentalists and the scientists, they point out that the island ecology is quite fragile and it will not support the massive influx of the population that is nearly about 6.5 lakhs of the residents into the region. Also, the anthropologists, they have warned that forcing the contact on the isolated PVTGs that will result into or cause the cultural extinction and even the disease epidemics into the region. Now, when it comes to the complete issue over here that you can see over here, it is about the ecological crisis that we are talking. Now, when it comes to the region, so the project, it will require the diversion of nearly 130 square kilometer of the rainforest that is located over here. All right, the complete Andaman and Nicobar, we find that there are the rainforests which are there on the fringes, or basically they are located at the coastal edges. All right, so over here, when it comes to the core ecological warning, there will be felling of over 9.5 lakhs or 9.6 lakh trees that will result into the immediate and irreversible loss of the canopy into the region. There is also the destruction of the critical habitat of megapode as well as the leatherback turtle that will be there in this complete region. Now, at the same time, there is also one of the important thing to note over here. When it comes to Galathea Bay, it was actually a protected site, and it was declared as a wildlife sanctuary. But when it comes to this particular Galathea Bay, where the transshipment port will be located, so this is a primary nesting site or the nesting beach for the giant leatherback turtle. At the same time, when it comes to the project, you must see over here that what had been done was that to clear the way for the transshipment port, the government have denotified this sanctuary, raising the global environmental alarms as well. Also, when it comes to the project, so it will overlap with the tribal reserve of the Champagne. Basically, these tribes are hunter-gatherer group of just about 300 individuals which had been left. So sudden exposure to the external population that will pose the survival risk for this PVTG or particularly vulnerable tribal group that lives over here. Now, over here, the government have announced that there will be arid afforestation because of lack of land that is there in the Great Nicobar. So there is no land to spare and the government is planting. There will be thousands of the trees or thousands of kilometers away. There will be plantation of the trees that will be done in the semi-arid terrains of Haryana. Now, over here, the critics have called this as an ecological mismatch when it comes to the plantation or the trees that will be felled in the region. There is also coral translocation where the ANITCO, it plans that there will be physically extraction of the threatened coral reefs from the Galathea Bay and they will be transplanted to the adjacent deep waters to minimize the construction damage. And also, when it comes to National Green Tribunal, it has mandated that there will be setting up of 3 tier committees to oversee pollution control, tribal welfare, and the biodiversity preservation for the complete mega project that will be undertaken. So over here, these are the something that you can see over here, that when it comes to the foreign monopolies. So ultimately, right now, nearly 75% of the transshipment cargo that is handled by the foreign, the ports which are located into the region, like for example, Port of Colombo, Singapore, and even the Port Klang. Now, this dependency has cost us billions of rupees when it comes to the transshipment. At the same time, there is the threat as well. When it comes to Colombo, it handles more than 40% of India's outbound cargo, and there is heavy investment by China in Sri Lankan ports, whether it is Colombo or Hambantota, and that creates the strategic vulnerability that we have already seen during the West Asian crisis. Also, there is sovereign solution of that there should be the terminal at the Galatia Bay that will secure the total sovereignty when it comes to the Indian port handling, and ultimately that is the solution that India is looking for right now. Now, when it comes to the Malacca, so over here, this is also very important that when it comes to China, so China is superior to India when it comes to the arsenal. All right. That is, China has the 5th generation fighter planes. There is also robust navy and even the armed forces when it comes to the comparison. So yes, China's armed forces in the strength that is superior to that of the India right now. But at the same time, we have seen in the case of West Asian crisis, what has happened. In the West Asian crisis, Iran was, numerically and quantitatively, it was inferior to what USA is. US is basically the number one armed forces when it comes to the globe. But at the same time, what has happened is it was about the asymmetric warfare and even the Strait of Hormuz that has led Iran to, you can say, positive gains in the West Asian crisis. In the same manner, when it comes to the Strait of Malacca, that is very crucial for China, because when it comes to China, nearly about 80% and more than 80% of China's energy imports flow through this narrow corridor. And ultimately, the presence of India into the region, that will boost India's presence, and ultimately there will be more deterrence when it comes to the Chinese incursion into the Indian territories as well. So over here, this is the China's great fear, because this is called as Malacca dilemma, that if Malacca would be blocked, if there is blockade of the Malacca, so ultimately China will be cut off from its energy supplies. So this is where, when it comes to building a dual-use military base at the Great Nicobar, India will position its naval assets at the western mouth of this channel, and ultimately that will be absolute strategic deterrence that India will be posing into the region. Now, these are certain facts that you must remember for your prelims as well, because this news is important, or this article is important for your mains, but as well as for your prelims. When it comes to the Great Nicobar, it had been declared as Biosphere Reserve in 1989, and later on it was selected for the UNESCO Man and Biosphere Reserve program in 2013. At the same time, when it comes to the Indra Point, it was earlier known as the Pygmalion Point, and it is the southernmost tip of India, and it was partially submerged during the devastating 2004 tsunami, and it is located at 6 degrees 45 minutes north. Also, when it comes to the tribal groups, over here we have the Champagne tribes, which is the PVTG, and we have the Nicobarese tribe that lives in Great Nicobar. And also there are key rivers, that is Galathea, as well as Alexandra and the Amrit Kaur rivers, which are the primary freshwater systems sustaining the green and the evergreen, the forests which are located in the Great Nicobar. So that would be all in this video. I hope that now you have the complete understanding that this port is actually important for presence of India and the Indian armed forces into the region. And also it is important for preserving that $200 billion which we are giving to the other countries. All right, so this is important strategically as well as economically, but at the same time, there is the risk of the tribal groups which are located over here that will be impacted, and they will be relocated to the other places. And then again, that raises the risk for the Champagne tribes as well, which have just about 300 of the people which are living into this region. Also, there is an impact that will be there on the ecology of the complete region, be it the coral reef or the megapod, or even when it comes to the leatherback turtles, which have the nesting rights or the sites which are over here. So that would be all in this video. I hope that now you can, cumulatively, you can understand that this project is basically, it is the boon as well as bane when it comes to the complete project highlights. So that would be all. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me over here. But at the same time, if you are preparing for the civil services for 2027 or 2028 or for 2029, so you can join the GS Foundation course on the platform of StudyIQ. Now, over here, these courses are modeled upon the smart technology, or you can say smart way of teaching, where you get a proper response or the proper channel for your preparation for your examination, right from prelims to your interview. And you can join these courses with the discount as well. Now, for the maximum discount, what you can do is you can use the code that is BRS Live. That is the code that you can use for the maximum discount, and ultimately you can enroll into the batch. Now, that would be all in this video. Thank you very much, guys, for joining me over here. And also, do not forget to like the session, share the session with your friends who are preparing for the civil services or who are, concerned about the environmental damage that is being done. Also, do not forget to subscribe our channel so that you do not miss any of the future updates. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care and Jai Hind.